It's not one bad evening anymore. It's every evening. The sighing, the eye rolling, the one-word answers, the feeling that somehow whatever you say, you've got it all wrong. You ask a completely normal question and you get that look. I mean, you know that look. We've all received that look. The look that says volumes, despite it actually not saying anything at all. You ask if she's hungry and she literally snaps at you. You remind her about something she needs to do and suddenly you feel like you're the worst mum in the world. And after a while, you start doing something without even realising you're doing it. You start walking on eggshells. You then soften your voice. You pick your moments. You decide whether something is really important enough to bring up. And you brace yourself before asking that simplest question. And you know what? You are exhausted. You're running on empty 24/7. Because this isn't one of those moods that just passes after an hour. It's been going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. And when something goes on for that long, your brain starts looking for explanations. It starts filling in the gaps. What's going on with her? Is this just who she is right now? Have I done something wrong? Why does everything have to be so difficult with her? And before you know it, you're not just dealing with the grumpiness. You're dealing with the story you've built around it. And that story can change everything. Because what if the problem isn't actually the grumpiness? What if you're staring at one dot in isolation when there's a whole picture you're not seeing yet? So welcome to The Teen Whisperer, the podcast for mums of girls, tweens, teens and young adults. I'm Rach Foodley, a fellow mum who totally gets where you're coming from and the person who connects the dots everyone else is staring at in isolation. Now here's the truth. You are not one diagnosis away from understanding your daughter. You're not one parenting hack, one quick fix, or one stern conversation from fixing this, because do you know what? There is nothing to fix. Every single thing you're seeing, the slammed door, the silence, the phone she just cannot put down, the mood that flips in a second is never just about one thing. It's the whole picture. And right now, you may be staring at one dot of it, trying to make it mean something on its own. So every episode, we're going to connect some of those dots. We're going to have the biology behind the behaviour, the physiology that is going on inside her own body, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what you're then making your thoughts mean, and whether that meaning is fact, fear, or fiction. What might actually be going on for her, not what's wrong with her, and one teeny tiny weeny small thing to notice, try or think differently. No jargon, no fixing, and definitely not 15 strategies you'll never ever use. You know the ones you keep being told you need to try this, try that, try this, try that. Anyway, this podcast introduces you to a different way of looking at what's happening so you can understand her, understand yourself, and feel a little less lost in the middle of it all. Because this is not about becoming a perfect parent. In fact, perfection is overrated in my opinion. It's about moving from what the hell is going on to, now I see it. Because as I say, behaviour is never just about one thing. So let's stop staring at the dots in isolation on their own. Let's connect them properly together. And that starts now within this podcast. So let's dive in. What you see is a girl who seems permanently grumpy. What you think might be, she's becoming difficult. This isn't the girl I know. Why is she like this all the time? Nobody else is dealing with what I'm dealing with. Maybe she's got an attitude now. And then comes the really uncomfortable bit. You start wondering whether it's you. Have I done something wrong? Am I giving her too much? Have I spoilt her? Have I not given her enough? Am I being too soft? Am I being too strict? And because you're living with this day after day after day, it's incredibly easy for the behaviour to start to feel personal. Every sigh feels directed at you. Every short answer feels like evidence that you're getting it all wrong and you're failing as a mum. And that's exhausting in a very particular way, because it's not the exhaustion of one massive argument. It's that constant low-level tension, the bracing, the hypervigilance, the constantly on high alert, waiting for the next thing to go wrong, the wondering what mood she's going to be in when she walks through the door, the feeling that you just have to get everything right. And eventually you start believing that this is simply who she is right now. But here's the bit I truly want you to hear. Weeks of grumpiness does not mean you've got a grumpy daughter. It may just mean you've got a daughter whose body has been running on empty for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that is a very different thing. Because if we only look at the behaviour, we miss the bigger picture. I mean, think about it. A single bad mood. Maybe she slept badly. Maybe she hasn't eaten properly for days. Maybe something's happened with a friend. Maybe school, college, university, work was particularly stressful. One tiny, teeny, weeny thing can tip the balance. But chronic grumpiness is different. It's often what happens when lots of little things have been stacking up. A bit like that onion, layers and layers and layers. And there hasn't been enough recovery in between. So let's look at some of those dots. Stress, school, college, university, work, friendships, homework, exams, online training, trying to fit in, being constantly connected to other people's lives online. That feeling of being watched, judged and compared that can sit quietly in the background of teenage life, constantly chipping at her confidence. Even when she looks like she's doing nothing, her brain may not be getting much of a break. Movement and sensory input. When does she last properly move her body? Not walk from the car into school, college, university, work. Not wander around Primark. Not go from one building to another. I mean move. Run, climb, swim, dance, jump, mess about. Be outside. Do something physical without it being about exercise. Because our bodies need movement and sensory experiences. And sometimes what looks like irritability is a body that hasn't had enough opportunities to discharge some of that anxious energy. And then structured time. When did she last have time where absolutely nothing was expected of her? So no school, no college, no university, no work, no homework, no online training, no club, no social plans, no screen demanding her attention, no one asking her questions, just space. Because rest isn't always lying on the sofa scrolling. Sometimes the brain needs less input altogether. And then, on top of that, if that's not hard enough, there's her cycle. Hormonal fluctuations can affect sleep, energy, mood, and how much capacity she has for dealing with, well, you get it, everything else. And again, I'm not just saying, oh, it's just her hormones, as people keep telling me, because that becomes yet another isolated dot. I'm saying, where is she sitting within this bigger picture? And then there's the phone. But notice I'm not saying it's the phone, because the phone is rarely the whole story. The phone may be the place she goes when her body is already overloaded, because it gives her stimulation, it gives her distraction, it gives her connection, it gives her novelty. And it's a way of switching off from whatever she's feeling. So if we make the phone a villain, we might miss the question underneath it. What is she getting from that phone that her body is not getting somewhere else? And suddenly we're connecting those dots. Stress, less movement, less outdoor time, very little genuine downtime. Those hormonal changes, that constant stimulation, the phone. None of these things necessarily cause chronic grumpiness on its own. But put them together and it's different, because it's the stacking that matters. And this is where I want to give you that little mental shift. Instead of asking, how do I stop her being so grumpy? Try asking, what has she been dealing with lately? That's a completely different question. One puts you in fix-it mode, the other puts you into understanding mode. And I'm not asking you to diagnose her. I'm not asking you to analyse every single thing she does. I'm asking you to zoom out. Because sometimes the thing you're trying to change isn't the thing that needs changing. The grumpiness might simply be a messenger from the body. So here's your one thing, and yes, I said one thing to try this week. Don't try to fix today's mood. Zoom out and look at the last 7 days. Just 5 minutes. You can do this in your head, or you can grab a piece of paper and write it down. And ask yourself 4 simple questions. 1, movement. When did she last have proper physical movement or outdoor time? 2, recovery. When did she last have genuinely unstructured time where nothing was expected of her? Number 3, hormonal load. Where is she in her cycle, and have you noticed any pattern around this? So this week, it's my daughter's period, and I know she doesn't sleep well, she doesn't eat well, she doesn't drink well during the first 2 days, and she's blinking exhausted. So she's in her room. But that's okay, because I know that's where she is in her cycle. And I always ensure that she gets a decent evening meal and a decent breakfast with a smoothie. What she does in the middle is up to her. If she's not up to doing anything, that's okay. I know what I'm doing to support her is enough. And then you have 4, demand. So how much has actually been asked of her this week? School, college, university work, homework, online training, activities, friendships, social plans, family stuff, constant messages, constant stimulation. It's not just about one thing, as I say. Look at the whole week, not just yesterday, not just the argument you had this morning, the whole picture. And here's the important bit. Do not try to fix all 4 at once. You're not creating another parenting checklist. You're looking for the dot that's shouting the loudest. And as I say, for me, that's my daughter's hormones, because she's in her period week. Maybe she's had 3 weeks of school, clubs and social plans with virtually no downtime. Maybe she's barely been outside. Maybe she's spending every spare minute scrolling because she's completely running on empty. Maybe you suddenly realise that she's been getting through day after day after day without any downtime. That's your starting point. Not, we need to have a serious attitude about your... No. We need to have a serious conversation about your attitude. No. Instead, what could I change around her this week that might give her body a bit more room? Maybe it's protecting Saturday afternoons. Maybe it's getting outside together doing something fun. Maybe it's doing something physical. Maybe it's simply taking something off the calendar. And notice what we're doing here. We're not rewarding the grumpiness. We're not letting her behave however she likes. We're not ignoring boundaries. We're simply recognizing that boundaries and biology and physiology can exist at the same time. She can still be responsible for how she behaves. And you can still be responsible or still be curious about what's underneath it. Both can be very true. So this week, do not ask, how do I get her to stop being so grumpy? Ask, what's her body been dealing with? Take 5 minutes. Look back over the last 7 days. That's it. Find the missing piece and just protect a little more of it. No massive intervention, as other podcasts, other parenting experts, or those parenting experts tell you to do. No new parenting strategy. Just one teeny tiny small shift based on the whole picture rather than one isolated behaviour. And if you've been walking on eggshells lately, I want you to hear this too. I can see why you're tired. Living alongside someone's constant irritability can make you question absolutely everything. You start wondering what you did, what you should say, whether you should say anything at all. You start trying to manage her mood so that the whole house feels calmer. But you don't have to carry that. Her grumpiness is not automatically a verdict on your parenting. And it isn't necessarily a personality change either. Sometimes it's simply her body that's been running on empty for longer than either of you realised. So before you react to the next sigh, zoom out, pause, breathe and connect the dots. And ask, what might her body be telling me? Because when you see what's underneath the behaviour, you don't necessarily need more strategies. In fact, you do not. You need a different lens. And that is the whole point of the Teen Whisperer. And if you're listening to this podcast thinking, right, I can see the dots. She's describing exactly how I feel, what's going on. But honestly, I need someone to actually work this stuff out. This is exactly why I created WTF, What's the Feeling? It's my community for mums who want to stop feeling like they're constantly trying to decode their daughters on their own. Inside WTF, we don't just talk about teenage behaviour, we connect those dots. We look at what's happening underneath it, what's going on in your daughter's body and development, and what might be going on for you too. There's the online community and live calls where you can bring the real stuff that's happening in your home. And then there's this bit I'm particularly excited about as we head into this next stage of WTF. Because sometimes the best way to reconnect with your daughter isn't having another conversation. It's about doing something together. So we're also bringing in mum walks, space for you to get outside, move your body and connect with other mums who completely get it, and mum and daughter activities, because connection often happens much more naturally when you're doing it side by side, doing something rather than sitting opposite each other trying to have the conversation. It's not about creating another thing for you to do. It's about creating opportunities for connection, understanding and a bit of breathing space in the middle of real family life. So if this sounds like something you need, come and have a look at WTF. The link is in the show notes. And if you're not ready yet, that's absolutely fine too. So keep listening, keep connecting those dots. Let's zoom out together and remember, you do not need to fix your daughter. You need to understand what she's telling you through her body. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.